This course will require that you write a significant number of papers and post discussions. As a professional who not only teaches but also owns a couple of businesses, I can attest to the fact that your employees, managers, executives, and customers will all form an opinion about you based upon the quality of your writing. And what would you think about your boss sending you an email scolding you about being late if it contained a bunch of typos and was grammatically incorrect? Would you ignore it? Would you laugh and show your coworkers? Would you feel that the person was qualified to supervise you if they could not even send out an error-free email? And the answer to that question is probably a resounding no. Even when I write an email to a student or to my dean, I make sure that it is as close to being error-free as I can make it. Why? The answer is simple. I want the recipient to pay attention to what I'm writing. In business, you will not hold anyone's attention if you cannot guarantee solid written material. In fact, many human resource managers admit to throwing out a resume just because it contains a typo. By screening for typos, they can cut down on the number of resumes that need to be reviewed by as much as 30 to 40%. So all of that being said, we get into the habit of generating quality business-related written work in this class. So how do you submit A papers in this course? Well, first of all, you need to download the grading rubric for written responses to questions, discussions, and homework assignments. And the rubric is your roadmap to an A. You will notice in the rubric at the top that it states that your paper should be submitted in APA format. And that means that your paper size should be 8.5 by 11 with 1-inch margins on all sides. Your fonts should be 12-point Times New Roman font, and most word processing software programs will have that font available as one of their default fonts. And that is the first thing I check when I open your submission. If you do not meet basic APA format, I will not accept it. This is important because a 3-page paper from one student should include about the same information as one from another student. And when you submit an assignment, your paper will be read twice. The first time it will be read, it will be confirmed that you have all the required elements, and I'll include a check mark as part of my grading notes at each required element. Now the heavy grading will take place during the second reading. So let's look at the rubric. During the second reading, I am looking for graceful use of language in a paper that is error-free. If you turn in an error-free paper, you should receive all 50 points for this section. And the points are reduced for each error in the paper. And I will reject papers that contain more than 5 substantive errors. If I reject your paper, you will have the opportunity to re-edit it and submit it. And you should take this opportunity to improve your grade. In the next section is where your content becomes important. Remember the first reading of your paper? Well, if I find that you have included all the required elements and that your paper is well organized, you will receive all 25 points in this section. And the points are reduced as evidence of lack of organization becomes more obvious. Now, in the significance of contribution area, you are expected to write on a college level and to prove that you have mastered the topics that we've discussed in the paper. It is not enough to recite the textbook. As this is college level work, the resources you use in the drafting of your papers are expected to go well beyond the textbook. You should also make sure that your papers meet the required length. The suggested length of your papers is carefully considered. If you answer all the questions and provide a sufficient level of detail, you should have no problem meeting the length requirement. Issues like failing to meet the length requirement can be minimal if you have adequately covered the material. But be very careful and be very careful with submitting papers that are too short for the assigned work. And the last section of the grading rubric is where you can really prove that you have gone above and beyond in your assignment. You should show that you have used the textbook and other relevant resources. Now, for each source you use, you should include an APA citation. If you do not include APA citations on your paper, the highest grade you can obtain is a 94. And at this level of college work, it is important that we reveal our research contributions. So make sure your paper is error-free, and make sure that you put in a sufficient level of detail and APA citations. So what other things can you do to improve your grade? Well, use humor and be creative so that your content is interesting. Although I do not really care about cover sheets for your submitted work, if you use one, use it as an opportunity to be creative or to use a template. Make sure that your sources are credible. If you happen to use Wiki, it should not be your only source. Using Wiki is not considered an acceptable source anyway. So what are the most important things in this video? Make sure that your papers are in 12-point font with 1-inch margins. Make sure that your papers are properly edited and error-free. Papers containing more than 5 errors will be returned for editing. Make sure that you directly answer all the questions and include responses to all the required elements. Make sure that your papers provide a sufficient amount of detail that supports the points you are making. And for a possible 100 on your paper, include all your APA citations. I hope this video helps in understanding the grading rubric and improving your overall grade in the course.